Now by microwave, Prime Minister Pearson in Ottawa speaks with Charles Templeton in Toronto.
Mr. Pearson, I don't think I've ever, in all the years I've been watching you, seen you as angry as you were on your return from Jamaica. At whom were you particularly angry?
Well, I was angry with myself because of the bad luck which had me in Jamaica at the time this vote took place. I was down there to give a convocation address and meet the premiers of West Indies, the West Indies countries, and talk trade and other business with them. And then I decided, as I was down there, I'd take a couple of days off. I was pretty tired, and I'd been working pretty hard. And just at that time, I was there when this happened. That made me very angry with myself. I was very angry with my party, my colleagues, because of the fact that we allowed this vote to take place and defeat us. And I was very angry with the opposition who tried to as I put it, to manufacture this, and I use that in no offensive sense, manufacture this defeat on third reading on a vote which we had won in all the previous stages into a sort of a national constitutional crisis.
Would there also be a degree of anger there because you could see your term of office in the House of Commons ending not with a bang but with a whimper?
Well, no, I think it was more like to end with a bang than a whimper.
But not a triumphant one.
No, well, I didn't expect it to be very triumphant, but I had a hope that perhaps we could get through the last few weeks without this kind of situation. No, that didn't worry me too much, Charles, because I knew that as long as we were a minority government, and we'd come pretty close to defeat before, and that there was a convention campaign going on, I knew that this was a possibility. So I didn't expect to end my days in peace and glory.
Yeah. Mr. Pearson, would it be fair to put it bluntly that the government simply blundered?
Of course they blundered. There's no doubt about it. They certainly did blunder. When a government that has 129 members who could vote for it because they're members of the government party can only muster 84, even though it was a Monday night and nobody expected this kind of situation, that is a blunder. There's no doubt about it. I'm not trying to deny that. But there were some interesting circumstances about that blunder that we had won the previous debates on the earlier stages without too much difficulty, and it was expected that the third reading would probably not be taken that night. Anyway, it was a blunder. I'm not trying to excuse that.
Would you seem to be suggesting then that the opposition's statement that if the government had been asked prior to the vote on Monday night whether it would be regarded as a confidence vote, they would have agreed that it was. Would you agree with that?
If they had been asked before the vote was taken, that would be a very unusual thing indeed for an opposition to do. Whether this was a confidence vote, the acting leader would have said yes or no. If he said yes, he would have made sure that he had more than 84 members there. If he had said no, then it wouldn't have mattered. Insofar as confidence was concerned, this is a technical expression. But you see, this debate had been going on for some time, over a period of 4 days, and we had won all the votes, and the opposition took this particular measure, which they now consider to be of such great importance, so lightly that on the second reading, none of the party leaders in the opposition, except I think Mr. Cartwright, even spoke on it. They didn't even vote.
Yes,
So it was a bit of a surprise.
Yes, Mr. Pearson, I was in Winnipeg on Monday, Regina on Tuesday, and Edmonton on Wednesday on hotline radio programs, and let me report to you, as you probably know, that the country was very, very angry. But among other things, they were most angry about what they call what is called the Tuesday to Thursday Club, politicians who come in only from Tuesday to Thursday. What about this facet of it?
I know, I hear a lot about that, of course. But you must remember that politicians are representatives of constituencies. They get back to their home. They're down here most of the year now. They get back to their homes over the weekend to meet their constituents and their people. And we do try to arrange business here. This applies to all parties and all governments, so that they can have a long weekend. They don't go home to relax. They go home to meet their people. and very often they stay there till and come back Monday night.
What about the absence, sir, of the men who are running for the leadership? Now, first of all, you told me on January 1st when I interviewed you that you were going to lay down the law, and yet Mr. Green was away, Mr. Turner was away, Mr. Martin was away.
Yes, you've mentioned 3. All the others were here, and we have a cabinet of 25, and the 3 who were away assured me that they it didn't affect the vote because that they had their own pairs for that particular evening.
Do you think, in retrospect, that holding the leadership contest over a period of approximately 3.5 months, that this was an unwise decision because of the fact that it does have some effect on the normal operation of business?
I think it's a most regrettable situation that you have to take that long to change the leadership. But I was resigning not as Prime Minister. I could have resigned as Prime Minister in 24 hours. I was resigning as leader of the Liberal Party. And to replace the leader of a party under our party constitution, it may apply to the other or not, I don't know. But under our party constitution, you have to choose delegates from every constituency, and they were all new constituencies now. You have to get them down here. You have to have arrangements made for a big convention. Under our constitution, you have to have a minimum of two months, a minimum of 2 months. I think this is most unfortunate. I hope we can do something about that in the future.
Is it going to lead to an earlier election? You've talked about June, you've talked about the fall.
Oh, I think an election is in the offing. I would hope that we could get through our program now and after the convention. The new leader would have a chance to bring in a speech from the throne and a program of legislation and try to get his vote of confidence, which I hope he will do. I hope we won't have an election until the autumn. And I particularly feel that way, Charles, because we are going through, and by we, I mean Canada. And this is not a partisan observation. And it applies to practically every country in the world. We're going through very difficult financial and economic times. And I would think that at this particular moment, a general election wouldn't do any good.
Now,
in the autumn, that might be very different.
All right, Mr. Pearson, the words trickery and conspiracy have been used. I want to throw them away for a moment and put it to you this way. Do you regard the opposition's actions as dirty pool?
No, I don't. And when I use the word trickery in that broadcast, I was quoting from a telegram I got saying, don't give in to this trickery. And then later I did say it was a trickery situation. If you'd been around here in the House of Commons and outside the House of Commons the last 5 years, you would consider that a very mild observation indeed.
Yes.
It is the duty and the right of the opposition to defeat the government by any legitimate means. And one legitimate means is to try to outvote them by, if you like, keeping people behind the curtain and rushing them in an emergency.
Was it legitimate means to defeat the government and regarded as a defeat with only 166 members in the House on Monday night?
I don't think that kind of defeat, when they had only, what was it, 61 voting for them, or 73 or something like that,
84.
on the second reading, which was the vote on principle, where only 50 conservatives voted, having been defeated on second reading, and then having managed to get a majority of 2 on third reading in the circumstances that existed. They were entitled to do that. I don't consider that was a vote of confidence against the government in a technical sense. And that's why we felt we were absolutely entitled to ask for a formal vote of confidence on a motion to that effect. And that's what we did.
Well, seizing upon that opportunity then, saying that it is the opposition's responsibility to defeat the government when and if it can, legitimately, but seizing upon that opportunity, would you describe that as politicking at the expense of the country?
I would describe it as politicking. I'm not going to say it was at the expense of the country. It might well have been their feeling that on this bill, if they could defeat the government, then it would be up to the government to decide whether they should bring in a motion putting before Parliament whether this particular vote should lead to a resignation or a general election or not. And the way to do that is to have a straightforward, clear vote of confidence. That's what we're doing now.
Well, now you have, by all the evidence, the support of the creditistes. Mr. Cowett has so indicated, at least. May I ask you, Mr. Pearson, who instituted the meeting between Mr. Martin and Mr. Cowett?
These meetings go on all the time. And the suggestion that we were doing something underhand and trying to bring the wrong kind of pressure to bear on Mr. Cowett is an insult to him and to us. It was the most normal thing in the world for Mr. Martin or anybody else to see Mr. Coates and try to find out what he was going to do and why he was going to do it.
Did he
What's wrong with that?
Did he? Didn't suggest anything wrong. I'm just asking the question, Mr.
No,
Pearson.
I know. I'm
Did he
talking to
go-
myself.
Right. Did he go at your instigation or
He
with
did-
your knowledge?
No, he didn't. He told me afterward that he had seen Mr. Coates. He didn't go at my instigation at all.
You can understand how people looking at it, seeing Mr. Coates do this astonishingly acrobatic flip-flop from day to day, that the average person would tend to believe that promises have been made to Mr.
I wouldn't
Coates.
describe that as an acrobatic flip-flop. Mr. Coates said he could not very well vote confidence formally in this government, or indeed confidence in a conservative government. But if he were asked to vote in a motion that the vote taken last Monday night was not a vote of confidence, he could do that. That's a perfectly logical position to take.
I am not, I hope you'll understand, Mr. Pearson, challenging you.
Oh,
I would
I understand.
But I would
Mr.
say,
Coates.
sir, that I would ask you, would you say to the country, which I think does has a concern about it, would you say that no benefits, no promises, no anything were offered to Mr. Coates for his support?
Not to my knowledge, and I'm the Prime Minister.
All
And Mr. Coates is not the kind of man who can be bought like that. And believe me, I'm not the kind of man who would try to buy him. And nobody else. If any such suggestion was made, and I have no reason to believe it was, if that suggestion was made to Mr. Coates by anybody, it wouldn't be carried out, but it wasn't made.
Fine. You said earlier, Mr. Pearson, that you feel this hoorah is going to blow over. Will it really, and I only have about 30 seconds, or will the mood of Parliament remain surly and this Parliament lose its usefulness?
Well, we'll know tomorrow or the next day. I hope we get this motion decided, and if it is decided in favor of the government, we carry on. We have some business to bring in, and I hope we'll get down to work and try to finish our business in March, then have the convention, then come back in April and carry on with the business of the country.
Well, thank you, Mr. Prime Minister.
Thank you, Charles.
Next week at this time, the third part, the final part of the documentary, The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich. W5 will return the week after that. Ken Kavanaugh, good night.
Let's have a party and drink up a lot of beer. Let's have a party and drink up a lot of beer. Well, wine is fine, but give me lots of beer. Wanna drink some beer, talk some trash this morning. Let's drink some beer till the rooster crows at dawning. Well, wine is fine, but give me lots of beer. Well, in the morning, yes, in the afternoon, yes, in the evening, spring. Wine is fine, but give me lots of beer.
This is the Canadian Television Network, CTV.